So role plays, people are a bit nervous about role plays. What are you nervous about?
I just want I kind of like an outline like of like the steps involved and what we're guiding them through, but like I feel fine with role plays. I was concerned about the I still think that I would rather have role plays that center people's lived experience and like their own experiences rather than having them inhabit a role of like a person ethnically or racially different than them. Personally, I feel more comfortable with that. Because I think no matter where you are, what your positionality is, like you're dealing with racism. So processing how you would deal with racism, um, you know, is
I agree. I at first, I'm because whenever I'm thinking role plays, I'm thinking a bigger kind of role plays. But I also realize that we're doing 1 hour role plays.
mm-hmm.
We're not doing 1 hour for 5 or 6 days, and so the most useful things. Here comes Catherine Saunders. The most useful things, and maybe Catherine can jump in. The most useful thing is the thing. It's like what Heather just said. The things that people experience that feel something, but especially the things that people are likely to bring up that we can actually deal with during the session.
So maybe, so I'm in total agreement with that. Maybe I'm looking now at the Google Doc, the outline, and I had, written in some roles and stuff like that among the things that were there, and I see somebody. So we can take out the black teens being followed
Yeah.
by a mistrustful white employee in a
Yep.
store. Um, and so I'm looking at those first ones, just
I think anything because like anything that gives people the because the whole goal with this in my mind is that we're giving people practice in
Right.
this like controlled environment because
Yeah.
when you're at a protest and you see a police officer being aggressive with a young black teenager in real life as a white woman, you might be like, what do I do? Oh my god, let me do this, let me do that, let me do nothing, let me be terrified. So it's all about creating like steps so that people can practice that
And I'm on a phone call.
so that when they do get to that point where it is stressful and real, um, they have like knowledge of what to do next.
great. So some of the things that I wrote on that, first of all, framing the intention of the role play. This is on the Google Doc, right? Some people will be playing a role. Notice what it feels like to be in that role. What's your own body reaction? What's your tone of voice? And then the watchers, the people who are witnessing that, notice your reactions to the role play. What's happening in your body, in your tone of voice? Because it's not just the role play, it's also the debrief after the role play, right? So some of the examples that we have there is how do you respond to all lives matter? So I broke that down into roles. So there's role one is the person at the dinner table talking about police shootings and saying that Black lives matter. And role two, Uncle Joe says that all lives matter. And
That's what
role,
happens.
I got an Uncle Joe.
and role
Name
three
is
is
Joe.
somebody's also at dinner but not involved in that. And so first, just role one and role two are interacting, and then, but a third person is in the role of not yet being involved, and notice how you feel, and do you come in, do you stay out, and why? So if that person comes in, like, what was that like just to witness that? And not be directly involved, and like what's inside of you, what wants to stay out, what wants to come in, how do you come in? So that's one. Does that sound okay?
Sounds
And
great.
what I like about what you just did, Lane, when we're doing this, you're giving people some awareness of the things to look for inside themselves and why. What's going on inside of you?
Right.
So then we first, like when we're going to do each one, we have to read the prompt or read the scenario and then ask for volunteers.
Yes.
So we have to set it up and identify the roles.
Yes.
Right. And I was thinking maybe for the first one, it would be best for the facilitator to play Uncle Joe or Aunt Lily. To model, like just to and maybe take on the ownership of like in being in the most uncomfortable.
That's great.
I don't know.
That sounds good to me. So let's write that down there. Great. Great idea, Lily. Anybody have any other questions about how that would go with that role play or discomfort about how to do that?
Well,
How to set it up?
you see so now what we're talking about doing is that we all have this list of role plays, 2 or 3 role plays, and then we are actually presenting those during our breakout session and saying, okay, and read the scenario and say, now let's inhabit these roles. Okay, let's do that, but let's also consider what happens if we have people that say, I don't want to do any of those things. I don't want to make up stuff. I've got plenty of things. Let's talk about this. So, okay, let's also consider that, what to do with people when they don't want to do that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like with all of these segments of the day, it's gonna be a lot of processing questions as much as it is about getting to the content. It's also like, all right, so these people volunteered for this, but certain people haven't volunteered for anything. Like, what makes people more likely to want to volunteer for something? Like, what are we afraid of? What are the risks that you take by volunteering? And then and if somebody brings up another scenario that is relevant, you could say, actually, you know what, that's a great one. Let's go for it. Like, I think there's room for that to be flexible, but I also think that it's also reasonable to have like a list to start with, because I think more than likely, probably people will be more quiet and need the prompting. But
Okay.
And I think if we have, so assuming everyone shows up, then we would have 10 groups of 10.
Right.
So then I think we should say, okay, I need 5 volunteers to be participants in the first scenario, and the other 5 are going to be observers. And then we go through one scenario, and then you debrief. And then when we do the next scenario, the observers, like, it switches. And so that way everyone has to participate.
Well,
I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry. We only have like a few roles. Like in most of these scenarios, there's 3 roles, and one there's 4 roles. So I think it's fine to do like 3, and the next role play we'll do another 3. I don't know. Unless you can think of other roles to put in there.
Well,
No, that works. It doesn't have to be 5 and 5. I think there'll be definitely time for 3.
And the other thing that what Heather said, I think, is important. And I think I would, rather than just jumping in and doing the role plays, I would frame it with the discussion that Heather brought up, which is, we're going to be paying attention. This is like hearts and minds. We have to pay attention to how we're feeling, what's going on in our own bodies all the time, even right now, what's going on. So I think paying attention to that is also important. If we can build that in, Lily, if you're taking notes, as a suggestion for a way to get into it without just jumping right in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be a couple of people who jump right on it and say, yes, I would like to be. And there's going to be equal who kind of always want to watch. So I don't think I think we'll be able to figure out based on actually we'll be able to see how the beginning goes to know who the people are going to jump on it. You'll know the quiet ones.
So what
Yeah.
I'm writing down is in this outline that we have there, notice your tendency to jump in or your tendency to just want to watch.
That's good. That's good.
And
It's just as much.
is this true for you also in terms of your relationship to race in general?
Yes.
Your engagement with racial issues?
So we'll probably have people at many different levels of comfort and awareness and practice. And so I think there's a lot of ways people can learn. There'll be some people just even attending is probably a big thing, and others who've done this many times.
So let's get more into the details. So for instance, it looks like the second one that I see there, how do you react to a situation where you see a black person getting stopped by police? We need to take that one out, because that would mean that there would be a black person
Yeah.
in there getting stopped by police.
Well,
And we don't know if everybody in the, first of all, if there's going to be a black person in every group, and second of all, are they going to want to be in that role?
right.
Right.
But you could still have a police interaction, like as a role play.
I think
No.
that's the heavier duty kind.
It's heavy duty, but it's also, I mean, it's hot on everyone's mind. Like we're talking about defunding
Yeah.
police and like
Yeah.
abolishing police. So like, you
Yeah.
know, for any person who's being stopped by police at a protest, like there's considerations of how you might be an active bystander or a witness or, you know, potentially intervene if it becomes, I don't know, like that, but that's like a whole nother training. So I get that, but I don't know. I guess we could include something about a police interaction for sure.
Especially if people want to do it.
Mm.
So how do we deal with that in terms of?
It doesn't
that,
have to be raced necessarily. It could, but I don't know. That feels weird too.
I mean, I think even if you've never been in that situation, you can't have never seen it at this point on TV. And you know what that might make you feel like, even if it's not in person. So I don't think that's something that anybody won't have some feeling about, especially
sure
coming
everybody
to
will
this particular training or this particular event.
I'm sure people are going to have feelings about it. The question is that do we feel like we want that to be in the role play? One way to do that for instance, could be, how do you react to a situation in which you see a black person getting stopped by police and there's 3 roles, and those 3 roles are all friends who are walking by when they see that happening? And
Yep.
how do they interact? Role 1 is we have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
We should intervene. Role 2, no, don't get involved. You know, it's going to put us at risk. Role 3, well, how do you know that that person didn't do something wrong anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Or how does that sound?
Yeah.
I really like the specificity of that, of like exploring the range of reactions in the moment. And I think people will connect with that range. It feels authentic.
And it doesn't have to be your experience. You're telling them what their role in this is. So regardless on what they may think or have experienced, you're the one who reacts. So that person, whoever does it, is going to be the one that reacts. So I think people like that because it's not them per se.
Yeah, I like it because we're not racializing the friends. And I could also see that as for a facilitator as a way to even rotate the people through the different roles of the 3 different friends. First you're
Awesome.
this, and then you're feeling how it feels to be in all those circumstances.
Well, one thing I do think as breakout group facilitators is when we call it sitting in the fire, I just know how easy, I'm sure we all do, to veer off of race, because it is hard to sit in the fire for a lot of us, for me, everyone, I guess. But I think we do have to keep making sure it stays focused on race.
Yeah, if we don't, it'll go
So
off.
easy to just slip over to something else like class or economics.
Yeah, so having it be
Person being
specific that,
stopped was specified, right? The person
Yeah.
being stopped. Okay, just
Yeah.
not the friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
So,
that makes it
Yeah.
so that you can't avoid race because you see that it's a
Yeah.
black person being stopped.
so
Yeah.
it's how do you react to a situation in which you see it, or
It
maybe
could be,
let's just say a group of friends.
it could be a group of friends going to one of the vigils or protests, and then, they witness.
Or just walking down the street.
Yeah.
Because friends going to a vigil or a protest are already.
Already. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So a group of friends walking down the street seeing a black person being stopped. Role 1, want to intervene in the situation. Role 2, scared to get involved and be targeted. 2. Role 3, how do we know that person didn't do something wrong? Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. So next role play. Respond to being told your behavior is racist. Role 1. It doesn't have to be a person of color.
No,
So just someone who says something that was said is racist, and the original comment doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Role 2, the white person who said the thing. Role 3, another white person who's watching but not involved yet.
So for this, we're specifying that they are white, which
you see, then
No,
we're
you-
racial.
Being called the racist, I think should be white.
that's fine. Yeah, no, that's
Could be.
Yeah.
No, I don't
true.
know.
Statistically
Yeah.
accurate.
Okay, but
That's where we have our
So
problem.
Keep in
so
mind-
role 1, the person who
mind that-
said something that was, who says something, who says that was racist.
Could be anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to specify that these are white people. Let's let everybody decide that, because see, the thing is that we've got at least half of the people in that are coming are going to not be white. And so we can't have all the roles then we're going to designate as white people.
But you can play any role.
No, you can.
Well, that's kind of what we talked about
Yeah.
earlier about wanting to avoid having people try to inhabit other racial and ethnic backgrounds.
Okay,
themselves.
I got
That's
that. That
Can
makes
we
sense.
just brainstorm some examples that would be a good example for that to
like of a
generate?
racist.
Yeah, like a
I would.
comment that
A good
will
example for what? I don't understand.
for the catalyst comment
Mhm.
rather than just like asking people to say it or
Mhm.
us think of it on the spot. Could we just have talk about a few?
Well, I'm actually thinking we don't need to specify a catalyst comment. We come into the conversation with somebody saying, hey, that was racist what you just said.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's no setup of what the person said. It's just
I
about
mean, unless, I don't know, do you all think that a catalyst comment would be?
I mean,
My biggest fear is people just freezing and not. I'm more worried about lack of participation, but maybe that's just me.
I think, from what I hear from white people that I know, that comment accusing you of that is the issue that they are responding to. Sometimes it may or may not have been whatever the comment was, but it's the accusation that I think people really respond to. So I'm with you, Lane. I don't know if we need to specify, because who are we to say
Something's racist.
something's, I can think lots of things are racist. And then other people, so then it gets into a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
I think that the accusation, we want people to go through, what does it feel like and how do you respond if the comment is that you are being, or whatever you said was racist.
Okay.
I think that's gonna probably be a group of white people. I don't know how many times people say racist stuff with black people in the room. I don't know. but more than likely it's going to be more of a familiar kind of thing where somebody you know might call it out because you might say something that you wouldn't say around other people. So I don't even know if you have to specify who the group, I don't know.
Yeah.
I hear that, but then what if part of the role is saying, well, why? Why is what I said? I don't know.
Oh,
That's a
I have
big-
an idea.
Yeah.
Assumptions.
Instead of white person who said the thing says, says, that's really, that you're being really harsh, and now you're the oppressive one. Or
That's
something
not,
Well,
like
so
that.
I still think I agree now. Like now that I like understand what Lily's saying, like giving an actual scenario is helpful because if you get challenged, like it would be helpful to like know what the thing is that was said.
Well, I'm sure there's a few common, like, oh, they only got their job because they're black, or there
Exactly.
has to be affirmative action, or, there's
Mhm.
these very common, really rote almost.
that's
I mean,
a
there's
good
so
point.
many levels. I mean, I know because I have work calls all day, and even something like having conversations about what's going on right now. Lots of people that I work with, they're just talking about, because they're all police officer involved people. That's who their people are. So a lot of their comments, I'm sure they don't mean them to be racist. I'm sure they may, if I bring it up, feel that it's insensitive or other things, but everything goes right to the police or right to, oh, the unrest or oh, the looting and oh, the violence constantly. I could think that's racist. I could think that's out of touch. I could think that's lots of things. So I don't know if I would think this has to be like an overt racism thing. I think it should be something that people might not always assume is racist. Somebody just talked about one of my staff people because we needed him to say something. All she could talk about was how articulate he was. I'm sure she does not think that that's offensive to me because she really does mean, oh, he's so well spoken, because he is.
Or like
So I think if you're a little more vague, I can see where it could be a very specific incident or a very specific conversation that people don't I mean, I don't want it to be, they called me the N-word. It can't be that.
So
It can't be something like that.
I'm happy to flow with what everybody thinks, but I'm just going to say my idea, and then I'm happy to let it go. My idea is that if we that it's such a typical situation, and there's so many possible
Example.
things initiating comment, right? But if we do an initiating comment, then we're going to get stuck talking about that comment. And for me, what's powerful about this role play is what are people's reactions to it, right? Like the person who, you know, I didn't like what you were saying. That didn't feel good to me. That felt racist. And then the other person, no matter what it is, right, exactly. Somebody's typing in, I'm not racist, right? You're being too sensitive. And then somebody else can jump in and say, yeah, as a matter of fact, I feel like you're being the oppressive one now. And then somebody else can jump in and say, wait a minute. I really, let's listen to what, right? We can have like different roles there. And that interactions feels much more alive to me and typical than any particular comment.
But I do think though, if you expand it and give it a little bit more context, then you have the ability to also role play the person who says, hey, that was racist. Like, because that's the other part of the practice that we want, especially white people, to get used to standing, like noticing that a thing is racist, which maybe they won't. And then that would be a really interesting thing to debrief in a role play afterwards. But you could have a scenario and, instead of telling people how they're supposed to react, like, you tell one person this is the behavior you're going to do, or the comment that was just made, and now then I don't know, it's hard
Well,
now.
but the problem is, Heather, if you do that, then you're asking people to present themselves, how they feel about that. And so then you get in that can cause a lot of a real issue. But if you do it so that they have a role, this is not them. This is what they're talking about. They'll bring their own things into it anyway, but it's going to still keep them far enough away from it so that they don't have to feel uncomfortable when it's over, that they didn't do it right, that they feel bad, that they sounded racist. So don't let it be.
Could it be something simple like you're at like a work like event or some sort of like training, and one person like makes I don't know, just like makes an assumption that like a person of color who's there like works there, and or like is like the staff like doing the buffet, like, oh, do you have any more orange juice? And it's like, oh, I'm actually the presenter. Like it could be
That's
one of
good.
those, you know.
That's a good one.
Those happen
Very
all the time.
common.
Yeah.
That's a
Very
good
common.
one.
Yeah.
Well, how about another one? How about this one? Your parents, and you're getting ready for Halloween, and you're saying, and somebody wants to bring in a blackface, and they say, and somebody says, well, I don't see why we can't do this. This is Halloween. This is just a pretend, and my child really wants to do this. And then another one can say, well, that's totally racist. And then somebody else can say, I think it's a problem that we're all too sensitive about this. I think this is Halloween.
Right.
So anyway.
Well, it probably wouldn't be blackface. It'd be like, or like a kid, or like it would be, but you wouldn't call it that. So like, this kid wants to dress up as Drake and he's going to paint.
Well, the only one I could think of was Barack Obama. But that's just Barack Obama. I don't think that would be black.
Oh, Lane, your suggestion is a little more open-ended and into process, which is really good. Would it be possible that's plan A, and that underneath we just have a couple of possible sentences that are very typically heard in case we're stuck, like Lily said, and we just feel like it's not going anywhere?
Well, I actually like the participant in an event who mistakes a white participant in an event who mistakes the person of color presenter for a service worker, and then a person who says role 2 is the person who says that was racist. So that's
a pretty good one.
Role 3, a white person who okay. So we don't need that one now, right? Because that's role 1, right? So role 3 then is the person who says to role 2, I don't like the way you're talking to them. Now you're being oppressive. Role 4 is watching but not being involved. Do they say something or not? If so, what? If not, why not?
That's good.
I think those are good because then this is going to give a lot of space for people to add.
Right.
It's
And
also I think it's also very unconscious bias. People will go, oh, I'm sure they didn't mean to be racist, but not knowing, well, that is kind of what that was. So I think that's one that lots of people won't think that the person was being overt, and it'll make you question how often those kinds of things happen.
And so Lane, maybe that's a role, not the one that says, now you're being oppressive, but the one that says, what did you say, Kathy? I thought that was good. The one that says,
it's unconscious. You didn't realize you were unconscious.
Something else you said. I forgot already.
I don't remember.
Yeah. See how fast he said?
Unconscious bias. You didn't realize most people won't even think anything of it unless it's brought to their attention.
Well, most people would as soon as it's, but
as soon as they realize it's the presenter, they're going to feel bad. They're going to feel bad, but.
And so part of that then is to find out how people are feeling.
Yeah.
And why would we want to do that? What's the purpose of that? Getting people to express how they feel.
Hearts and minds.
I think people feel like unless you say the N word, you're not racist. What else is there to be racist but that?
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people who discount lots of things that people say, lots of scenarios you're in because you didn't say that, or you didn't say anything that everybody can mark the box and say, yes, that was a racist comment or a racist thing. You know, I think, Mom, about our neighbor who called the police because they saw Mark through the thing. We live next door to them. Like literally, they see him every day, and they saw him through the peephole, and they called the police. That made no sense. So anyway,
I heard a story, like this woman got up and spoke yesterday at the vigil I went to in Everett, and I had also seen her speak up in Malden 2 days prior, and she's a Black educator in Malden Public Schools with 2 Black sons, and she, between Friday and Sunday, had an explicit incident where her children were playing, her 2 Black boys were playing outside with sticks, and the neighbor's cat had gotten loose, and there was a cat that ended up in the backyard, so the kids were curious, and some other white kid saw the sticks, and saw, and started yelling, "We're gonna call the police on you." That we could do a scenario. I mean, right, there's a million of them, but like that would be one. The mother, the kid, I don't know, like just the.
But there was an article in maybe yesterday's Globe. I don't know if people read it, about different Black people in the area. Most, pretty well-to-do, talking about their today experiences of things. They still, like one Colette Phillips, who's a very well-known person in the area, has a marketing firm. She says if she goes into a fancy store now, she carries the tiniest purse that she can carry, that she doesn't want there to be any question that she has anything in her bag. This is a 60-year-old, very accomplished woman who still thinks it today that she can't have a big bag because it just brings extra stuff that she doesn't want to deal with. Or kids who have those little Nerf guns. There was a parent talking about not allowing, and I remember when I had Farrell not do that anymore with his white friends in Prospect Park, because it was just, I knew he couldn't do it, and he was very upset. He was probably 10. I'm like, you can't do that anymore. At the time, I wasn't thinking Tamir Rice, but I did think you can't be running around shooting those with your friends. So I think that there's a lot of things that people do that other people don't think of, but seeing kids out and doing those kinds of things. I mean, I think we see kids all the time. Do we react differently depending on who those kids are?
I think that would be a very good scenario, like an educator role, like a white educator or whatever, an educator, and seeing certain behaviors in school and making certain assumptions or comments about what those behaviors reflect, or giving kids suspension, or like we know all about the school to prison pipeline, but something around education, like an education scenario, I think would be interesting too.
I like that.
Before we go on to that, I'm just,
Watching.
Lily and I are kind of doing different versions of this last one, and I just want to, if we can we just agree on one?
Sorry, I didn't mean to type over you.
No. I'm just seeing what you did, but I was typing up there, and I noticed that you were typing down there, and so Lily wrote, which I thought was great. Conference attendee asked nearby person of color to refill orange juice on the breakfast bar after the morning session. Role 2, I'm attending this conference and presenting during the afternoon session. So then,
okay, I think something.
I put in those ones. So Lily wrote, role 3 is the bystander. Do you intervene? Do you tell role 1 the person that their mistake was a hurtful example of bias? Or another thing is role 3 could be somebody who does come in and say that was racist. And then role 4 could be, now you're being oppressive, or something like that.
Sure, I could take out that.
I thought that we weren't going to have anybody play the role of the person who is presenting, right? It's all just like observation. So you have one person who makes the
Oh,
comment, and then like maybe, and then that person like is like
goes
weirded
back to their
out
table.
and like goes back to their table, and then the other person is like, hey, she's presenting, like she's
Okay.
you know
Aha.
what I mean? So then you're not like, you're not the black person, you know what I, again, like, but it is a black person that's in this situation, right? That you just had this microaggression, and then
Yeah.
you have a, you know, your colleague is like, no, she's on the program, hello, like, or whatever, and makes a comment, and then how do you respond to like recognizing that you basically did this, made this assumption that was racist, and also how does the other person respond in calling you in and having that conversation with just two people, maybe you have a third person as a bystander, but
All of these are good. Why don't we just do some? And because as
Let's
as you
practice.
get into them in the real thing, it'll take on a life of its own. And so just follow that.
I was wondering, so are we practicing today, we're practicing role plays, or are we practicing the dialogue piece, or both?
Both.
Okay.
I think we should practice the role play, even if we just do one of them. Let's do one of them and see what happens.
Yeah. Why don't we do that one that we just did? Who wants to be in what role?
Well, I wanted to ask a question. I mean, usually when I've done role plays, I've been in a group standing up and moving. Maybe you guys already talked about this. Are we going to just let people just stay in their Zoom camera position, or how are we going to handle movement?
They can move if they want to move. We can't, we only have an hour. And let them just do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
I think to really hear everybody, if they're somewhere else, it's going to be, you're not going to really know what they're doing. It's going to be
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to be role one, the white participant who asks the nearby person of color to refill OJ? All right. Great, Heather. I'm not hearing you though.
Oh, did you
Oh,
lose?
there we go.
Oh,
Okay. Who wants to be the person who says, who wants to be the person who says the person you asked for juice is presenting during the afternoon session? Great, Lily, thank you. And who wants to be that was the person who says that was racist? And who wants to be the person who says now you're being oppressive?
wait, what's that last person? I don't know if we need that last person.
Well,
It's confusing to me, so maybe just explain it, I guess.
well, that's what I hear all the time. Then the person who's called out or somebody coming to their defense says, now you're the one being offensive, you whoever called that person out.
I mean, I hear people say you're overreacting or it's not that big of a deal. Is that what you mean by oppressive?
Yeah.
Like someone
Yeah.
who
Okay.
you're overreacting. Why are you always overreacting? Why is everything racial? You know, you hear that all the time.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that
So
then.
so these are all separate people.
Yeah.
Okay. 4 roles. All right. All right. Great. So take one.
Oh, hi. The orange juice over here is it's almost empty. Do you mind getting me a little bit more? And then lady.
Heather, why did you just approach her? She's presenting today at the conference in the afternoon. Why did you think she was a service worker?
Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, so ridiculous. Totally an accident. You never know. Everyone's wearing these uniforms and they kind of, look the same.
I didn't see her wearing a uniform.
Oh, but she looks like, she's wearing the same color. So I must have mixed it up.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too. I didn't really think that was a big deal. She has on black.
Yeah,
So wasn't
exactly.
there going to be a roll 3 of somebody who says that was racist?
That's Mina. She's the one. She's going to say she's racist.
Sorry, I just joined late, so I wasn't sure if you
Yeah.
all were like sticking to a script.
No, we're just improving.
Okay. Well, that's so. Would I say that before?
You can just say it now
Just
and
say
we'll
it
just
now,
yeah.
keep reacting to it. Yeah.
Okay, that was actually racist. That was a racist comment that you just made.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? That wasn't racist. I'm not racist. I would never be racist. That's ridiculous.
I mean,
Gosh.
there were several people standing near you, and you specifically called out that particular person.
Yeah, I saw 2 other women on the other side of the table by the OJ, but they were white.
Oh my God, it was an honest mistake. I mean, really, it's 9 in the morning. We've been at this 3-day conference. I'm exhausted. It's ridiculous. I'm absolutely not racist. I don't have a racist bone in my body. I guarantee it was I'm going to go over and apologize to her right now. And I'm just going to, this was all totally blown out of proportion. But if you want me to apologize, I'll go apologize.
So everybody notice what's happening in your body right now. Yeah. Maybe this would be a moment to go around and ask each person what's happening in your body. Yeah. So Heather, what's happening in your body?
My cortisol levels are spiking. I'm I'm getting agitated. I'm defensive. I feel like the eyes are on me.
And what do you notice about your tone of voice?
Getting more high pitched, more rapid talking. Like I want to talk more and more and more and more and more.
And what do you notice about your facial expression?
Very skeptical and defensive about what's happening and trying to get people back on my side with my facial expressions, really trying to be like empathetic, like feel bad for me.
Right. Yeah. Can I say what I notice about your facial expression?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that you were like smiling the whole time and like very light and everything's good. And it was like this total positivity vibe, which is so different than what was happening inside of you.
Right. That's a good point.
I felt myself smiling too because I think I smile when I'm nervous. And so I noticed myself doing that. And I wasn't sure even as a participant, like, should I let that play out or a participant of Heather going to the table?
Well, what would you do if that actually happened? Would you let her do that? Or would you keep talking to her?
I don't know.
And
My gut reaction was I think I would rather keep talking to her at the table than her intrude someone else's space when she already said something that was offensive.
And when she's exhibiting so much white fragility and defensiveness, that's not going to be a repair that's going to be helpful for that woman.
Yeah, and I felt kind of, I felt like I wasn't like how like if I wanted to use that moment to like help her process or to help her educate herself or to just give her time to kind of like see the situation and sort of like come to her own in sort of addressing what had happened.
And what was your response in your body as you were considering those different things?
So definitely like tense and a little in my stomach.
Yeah. So you're having this whole internal dialogue with yourself, and at the same time, you're getting tense and your body's eating itself up.
Oh God, that's what we do.
Lane, you're so good at that.
And Kathy, how about you? So what I just did there was reframe what she said in a way that helps, and what each of you are saying in a way that in a way that helps to crystallize what the situation really is. Take it a step further than they're saying it,
Mhm.
so that it becomes clear to them and everybody else what's going on in the background. And using the body and the tone of voice and the facial expression as ways to notice what else is going on, because in the work that I do, we call that double signals. There's the intentional signal that you're sending, that's with your words. But then there's other parts of you that have other experiences, and that's like, it gets to our inner diversity inside. If we're only paying attention to the words, then it's like only paying attention to the person on the TV who's got the microphone, and everybody else is like not heard. So by going to, oh yeah, well, your facial expression, or yeah, you were gnawing on the inside, like then we get to hear the inner diversity that's happening there. Kathy, do you want to say what was happening with you?
It's funny because I was trying to think of what would I do to excuse this person, and I couldn't get out of myself, like, I'm not excusing her. That's exactly what she should get. But I think when she started talking about she doesn't have a racist bone in her body, all I could think of was that's always the go-to. And I was glad Mina just kind of kept on with it, that no, it is. Now, if I was in the role and I was in person, I would probably just try and diffuse it. I would just, I'm sure that's not what she meant, but I wasn't ready to do that yet. I was going to wait and see what happened. And then maybe if I was in real life, I would try to excuse some of it in that role. That's not really what she meant. I'm sure, I don't know her, but I'm sure that is not what she meant. But internally, I felt like she was getting what she should get.
And when you thought you should be excusing her, what impact did that have on your body?
I didn't think she deserved it, but in the role of someone who would say this is an overreaction, I felt like that was what the role I should be doing. But internally, it just sounded very familiar. So my personal Kathy thought was that is the go-to all the time, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard that particular, because I think people believe it because she didn't call her a name. So again, that person, until they call them the name, it couldn't have been a racist comment or a racist thought or even an unconscious bias thought, because sometimes people don't feel like they've done anything if it's not overt. So I thought that I like that example.
Can I ask you a question, Kathy? And again, this is just modeling how potentially to go on with this. So if you would say that, and I happen to be facilitating that role play, I might ask you, for instance, have you been in a situation like that where you have excused the person?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And usually, absolutely. I wouldn't say excuse, that might be extreme. But I will say, and again, these are work situations. I'm in a predominantly white work environment. I work with lots of white people who feel they are very well-meaning in social services, but I believe sometimes comments and situations, they're not aware of the unconscious bias, the racism, they're not aware. And a lot of times I've known them really well. So it may not be, not forgive, what was the word you asked me? It may not be excused, but I've had more of a, okay, let me explain to you what you just did in a coaching way. Sometimes these people that I have to coach. Sometimes these people work for me, and people bring things to me. So I think I've had to always be very aware how I manage it and deal with it. I would hardly ever, and I'll just say this amongst us, I would hardly ever in a very overt way come out and say someone was being racist, because I've always felt like in my role as a coach and as a supervisor, I have to be a lot more diplomatic than that.
And what's the impact on your body of being so diplomatic in those moments?
It's exhausting. It's exhausting, but I do think that over the years, I have a ton of practice. I mean, my mother knows. I'm very diplomatic about most things. And I pick and choose a lot of when and where, but I do think it is exhausting.
So that was just another example of like, as a white man, like facilitating a black woman in this moment, that was scary for me to go there in terms of like, I don't want to imagine that I know your experience, but I had an inkling of something and I wanted to ask. So I tried to ask a few questions to kind of help that come out, because I think it's really important for the people who are there to hear that from you. That yes, you do, right? Beyond the first part, the woman with the microphone said, "Oh yeah, I didn't want to go there, so I just thought this." But there was so much more underneath there that could be unpacked. So just asking you to, when I study with Ken Hardy, he says, ask one more question. So
That was such a good example, because you could have cut out 4 or 5 of those questions and just say, I saw this and I saw that, and I think this is what you were feeling. And then you get dumped all over, even if you were feeling,
in there.
feel like you felt that, and you just, how can you tell me how I'm feeling? You don't know how I feel. So you made a useful presentation of how to do it. Really good. Thank you.
That was so helpful, but also so good. I'm a little intimidated. Could we practice?
Let's practice more.
I
Let's
was
do
gonna
another one.
say, yeah,
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't we take the same roles and switch them up? Let's switch them around so that other people play different roles and see how those roles feel.
I was just gonna say too, I think framing for this will be helpful, because I think, like, for me, I knew instinctively to play the white fragility role. Like, I was literally channeling my mother. Um, and rest in peace, she was a lovely woman, but she had a lot to unlearn and she didn't quite get there. So like, but I don't know necessarily that everyone would do that. Like, we're all pretty well versed in this stuff, so it felt like maybe a little bit more prompting of like, okay, you're the person who said this and you're going to be defensive about it, or like anything like that would have been helpful too.
Oh, nice.
So like,
I wrote one in the doc that actually happened to me, my aunt.
want to try that? Do you want to try that one, or Diane, you want us to switch roles, or
Or
have
yeah,
me
Well,
Diane,
I just think it would be useful for you guys, having done that, now to we can rotate and everybody take a different role, and then feel how do you feel now? How did that feel different? Or even how did that feel having already done the other one, or anything?
So Diane, I think that's a great idea to do in the group. I wonder if right now it would be better to do a couple of other role plays so that people get more familiar with the different scenarios.
But in the group, you can do that.
Yes.
I mean, that's one thing you might do, just have them switch roles. Yes, I agree. Other roles.
So can we take out the blackface costume thing?
Yeah.
so no costume.
I think it's too dramatic. Like,
Okay.
it's too like drastic. It's so easy for white people to say like, "Oh, I would never do that."
I would never do that. So nobody connects to that, or nobody in this group's going to connect to that.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to cop to connecting to that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was Lily, did you say you put one in?
Yeah, I put one in earlier. I was in grad school for teaching and we were talking about education, and my aunt like just said this kind of out of nowhere, and I was taken
This is
aback.
the disparities in education one?
Yeah. Where she's saying, I have 4 white adult sons and I have 3 white little boy grandsons, and they're being left behind in schools.
What? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I could play her.
that's awesome. So let's see what the other roles are. So you could play that role. Role 2 is the cousin who challenges the aunt to explain and provides evidence for why education initiatives that target people of color and girls are important to address social and education inequities. Who wants to be that role?
I
Nancy,
think I
you
can
wanna-
do that. Sorry, I'm coming in and out. I'll try to do that. I just have to hear the first roll a little better.
Well, Lily will. Do you want
Yeah.
to say the first role again, Lily?
Sure. So we were just talking about the state of education, and my aunt, who's in her 70s, said she feels like it's really little white boys that are being left behind in schools. There are so many programs for girls and for boys of color or students of color that really little white boys are being ignored in the classroom.
Great.
And so I just wrote it for my experience because I've been thinking a lot about these scenarios. And so it was me and her having a conversation and no one else said anything until she left. And then her son and her daughter-in-law talked about how I responded. But no one else said anything when she first said that. So it was just a very intense real life moment that I thought might, at least for me, because I was in it, I thought it could play out and
That's
I
awesome.
could play her.
It's awesome.
Good, Lily.
So Nancy, then you're in the role, right? That you know that one. And then who wants to be other people at other people who are watching a conversation? The kids of Lily.
How can what? Who?
The the son
Oh,
of the
okay.
mom who's watching the conversation, the daughter of the mom watching the
Okay, so these are the
conversation,
white children.
daughter-in-law. Yeah.
And are we gonna give them? Is there any prompt for how they might like how they reacted in real life, or like not to tell me how to react, but like what was their general attitude?
In real life, they were like, they were kind of like didn't want to engage her and felt offended by what she said and affirmed how I responded, and then I gave evidence as to why that was the wrong view, but they didn't say anything to
In the
back me
moment.
up when she was there. And
Okay.
they were like, as she's gotten older, she's like saying some things like this, and but like it's not worth it. It's not worth getting her riled up.
Okay, so that's
Why
the
why
mentality.
don't we do, because there are three. And so why don't we have three children, one that backs up the mother, just backs up the mother, and one that is similar to the other one, and then one that goes totally against, that's all racist. Remember, we're staying on race. So that was racist. She was being racist, and backing her up is also racist. And then the other one that says there's overreaction. This, come on, get along. Why can't we all just get along? Or just three separate roles for the three siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So and the son backs up the mother, saying what? If you just give like a line.
She's right. It is happening. I see it.
Or, there are a lot of programs out there for those kids, for those other kids.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that's more subtle. Yeah. So there's somebody that's taking up for the mother, they're standing up for the mother. Then somebody has to say, there's somebody that's going to be against that and say, uh, uh, white boys are always going to be able to be fine. They've always been fine, and we need equity or something like that.
So I'm gonna suggest that this time I'm gonna take one of the roles, and one of you facilitates it, so that you get the chance
That's good.
to also do the debrief after. So who wants to do that? Go on, Heather. Not hearing you.
Can't hear
I'm
you.
also I'm happy to debrief. I don't know if you guys, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now I can.
Okay. So I'm going to be the son who backs up the mother.
Okay.
And who wants to be the daughter-in-law who says that was racist? Or you're overreacting?
Why don't Kathy,
So,
Kathy, why don't you say that is racist? And then,
hold on just one sec. So, friends, how are we going to deal with this moment?
We can't assign, so we have to say, all right, so.
Well, we can assign. That
We
would be
could.
one way of dealing with this moment. How do we want to deal with? And everybody can do that on their own. But this is the moment we're afraid of.
Yeah, and I think it's going to happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
what?
I noticed that a lot of
The moment that nobody's coming
people
into a role.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I noticed that there's a lot of people that are quiet in this moment. Does anyone want to talk about why you're reluctant to step up for this role?
It's just, I'm not an actor.
Well, so these scenarios were intentionally, designed by the facilitators from this group from real life experiences. So you might be, taking on a role, but this is, a practice experience so that when we're out in the real world, when these situations do arise, that we do know how to respond.
Yeah, but I'm not really, I just feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think who else here feels uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, does anyone want to talk about why they feel uncomfortable?
Well, people might misunderstand me. They might think I really feel this way.
Yeah. Anybody else feel the same way? It's scary to put yourself out there, right? But I would just remind you that, this is, you all chose to dedicate, time to come here and to be brave. And we talked about these in our norms earlier today, that this is a brave space, right? And, if we're too afraid to step up and talk, and take on these roles in this very controlled environment, how are we going to feel comfortable doing that, outside of it? So I really would urge you to step up.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, I'm afraid, but I'll do it anyway.
Thank you,
Oh,
Nancy.
Heather, that was
You know
awesome.
what?
That was awesome, Heather. Great. Great.
Right.
I have a question. How many people are there going to be in each breakout group?
So the maximum number is 10.
Okay.
We have
Depends on
and
how many people actually show up.
so just so you know, we cut off at 100,
Mhm.
and there is an extensive wait list. So all this is to say is that I imagine there will be future things like this. Hopefully. But yeah, so we have it cut off at 100 and we have 10 facilitators. So that would mean if every single person shows up, we have 10. But most likely we'll probably lose a few, and I don't think we need to rush to fill that because 90 would be great.
Mhm.
80 would be great. So yeah, I would say about 8 to 10 in your group.
So let's do this role play. So who wanted to be in the role of the
Oh, I thought I was
daughter?
facilitating, Lane.
Sorry.
Hey,
All
Lily.
right.
Fucking white men.
Yeah, so we're gonna run through this role play, and we need so we have Lily in the role of the aunt. We need somebody in the role of Lily, right?
After this was racist, that was me.
Yeah, great. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Kathy. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then we
Now,
need
Lily, you then.
yes, Nick.
Oh, okay.
Because it's you in the scenario, right? Yeah. And then we need 3 volunteers to be the children. Who would like to be the child who is defending their mom?
I'll do that.
Okay, great. And then who would like to be the child who agrees with Kathy? Awesome. Okay. And there was a third one, Diane?
You're overreacting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so and then I need somebody to be the third child who thinks that this is all blown out of proportion, really the peacemaker trying to
Mm,
is that
okay.
Mina? Great.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. And while we're doing this, I just want again to remember to like think about your body reaction, your body processes, your facial expressions, and we're gonna have some time to process and ask, go through some questions as we go. But we're gonna try to play this out as authentic as we can to the scenario and to the roles we've been given. So um, take it away.
You know, Lily, you're talking so much about inclusion and education, but I raised 4 white men, single mother on my own. I have 3 little white grandsons, and I really think they're the ones that are being ignored in schools right now.
But I cannot believe you said that.
I mean,
So, no, I mean, I need to hear that again. So why do you think that? What makes you think that other folks are getting something that, your kids didn't get? Maybe you can explain that more for me.
you
That
know,
sounds like a pretty
I've
basic
been
statement.
volunteering in a reading program for 20 years in one of the poor schools in Fort Smith. And every time I go there now, I see all these programs in art and STEM and literacy, and they're only open to girls or students of color. And what about my grandsons? Do they not deserve to have access to those programs? I just see them being excluded.
She's right. There are a lot of programs like that.
So there's nothing else that's offered except for those kids. So you're saying that there's no other opportunities in that school so we're talking back before. So we're talking schools today. So we're not talking about your kids back, 40 years ago or however long they were kids. So today in schools, you're saying that there's no other opportunities for other kids.
Well, she's talking about my kids. I'm her son, so she's talking about her grandkids.
Oh, all
My my
kids,
my
all
little
kids,
boys don't get any programs.
all kids need their needs to be met. And it's really clear that kids of color, especially Black kids and Indigenous kids, but let's just stick with Black kids, they take the brunt. They are sent to the principal's office 4 to 8 times more. They're assumed to be older than they really are. Teachers, we've done multiple studies. We have to have programs for Black and brown kids because it's not a level playing school. I also would love to see programs as needed for all kids.
I just don't know why my grandsons can't go to any program that the school offers.
Well, there's a very good reason for that. If I'm a minority kid and I grow up, I've been marginalized my whole life, and so has my family. Maybe we should all be studying some history here with you, me, and all the kids about what the true status of things is in the United States.
History? What does history have to do with anything? Well, this is right now. This is my
Yeah,
kids
just
right
talking
now.
about now,
I'm
right now.
bored.
I mean, let's settle down. I don't understand why we're all getting all worked up around this. All kids matter.
Yes, all kids do matter. That's why my grandsons, they need to learn everything that every other kid is learning. They need to go to all the after school programming.
All
I'm
right.
telling you.
Pause. Thank you all for that. So let's sit in this for a moment. Let's sit in our roles. And who wants to speak first about what's going through your mind right now?
Honestly, like I didn't know what to really say because it's like um I think it's hard not to take a side. And so I guess like if I'm actually a kid, maybe my focus is on diffusing the conflict. Um, and I don't know that a kid would have said all kids matter. But yeah, so I was just thinking, yeah, so I didn't really know like what to say. And so that's what I said.
Did it feel hard for you to be in a position where you're trying to be neutral or trying to be a peacemaker? Did you recognize any of that in experiences that you've had yourself?
I mean, I think, as an adult, um, like outside of the role, it was hard thinking about how one could be a peacemaker without addressing racism. Um, And yeah, in terms of like if I've experienced this before, I mean, definitely like there have been dinner conversations among family members where these topics have come up. And like sometimes I would engage and address it, but other times I feel like my way of diffusing the situation would be to like talk about a different topic, to like steer the conversation in a different way, or to, you know, decide at that moment to let a different family member take up the fight.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Has anybody else been in that situation where you've either had to, felt that you needed to diffuse something or needed to be the peacemaker, um, right. And so doing, maybe that doesn't feel as authentic, right? Because it's not addressing the underlying issue. It's really just sweeping it away.
Well, I think how I was feeling is how futile it seems like information is in the face of such passionate feeling on the part of the aunt. And I feel with the aunt too, but the gap of understanding why we need special programs or we need to focus in on groups that have been marginalized, the gap just seems so big and it gets so polarized. And I guess I start to feel kind of like we're trying to have a conversation, but I'm being informational.
You're like
She's,
this.
she's about her life and her passionate feeling, which I embrace for her own grandkids. I don't know. I mean, I feel that too, but this is a different angle on it. So I guess I just think it gets polarized, and how can this end up being helpful? It starts to feel a little hopeless.
Yeah.
Felt it was a polarized, like like in real life, I wouldn't spend any time with that person having any conversation. So I I mean, I leave that for a lot of other people to do. And I think depending, if there was like a where you could go with it, and I think the way Lily did it, there was no reasoning with that. And
Okay.
I think that my approach would be, I wouldn't really engage with the person. Now, if it was my family member, maybe it would be different. I mean, you know, of course, family members, you have to talk to them sometimes.
So, yeah, so that speaks to something really important, right? So, whose responsibility is it to intervene in these situations, right? Is it, you know, uh, how do I frame this question? The answer is white people. It's white people's job to do it. But I realize it's not a good facilitation question.
I think family members is probably somebody, I mean, I'm going to assume there's that relationship, and maybe there's an opportunity for somebody to hear something that is very polar opposite of what they believe when it is from a family member.
Right.
I don't think somebody that they really disagree with, I mean, if that aunt is really coming in with those thoughts, it's not going to be somebody else who's going to break into that. So I think that there is, I mean, I think that it's going to have to be sort of unless she has a change.
Yeah, in the real thing, in the real life, she left and then we all debriefed and she was gone. So do you think I should have done that
No, you're
in the
perfect.
scenario?
No, I was gonna say. So I want to talk to you, Lily, because you took on the role of somebody who you know very intimately. And how did that, how did that feel, embodying her?
I
And
feel very hot in my cheeks and tense in my muscles.
can I say something that I noticed? Just when you and Kathy were having your interaction, Kathy's face was very stoic, and it was like, even though you were not in the same room, it was like eyes locked, like eye contact locked. And you, Lily, were like looking all over the place. Like you were talking and really like, well, this and that and this and that and this and that. And there was no eye contact. And I want to kind of analyze that a little bit. What do you think was going on there?
I don't know if I was aware of that, but I believe you. I think that was probably my own. I definitely felt uncomfortable in the role, but also it was a powerful life experience. So I'm glad that that we're practicing it right now. And if my memory serves me right, I think that was probably true, that there was a lot of like talking to the air, because really she's hearing herself say the same thing over and over again, and nothing that I said was really landing.
Mhm.
And I think that when someone is making something so personal and failing to see the systemic or the history, then it is so hard to engage.
Mhm.
Can I, just because of the time, we have about 8 minutes, can I come in with a little coaching for you, Heather?
Yeah.
That's for everybody. First of all, awesome job, just how you handled that entire thing. Awesome. And I just want to notice that your first question after the role play was about what's on your mind, or what are you thinking, or something like that, uh, which is gonna get a response that's more about that. I mean, it ended up being really good, but another way to lean into is what did you all notice happening in your body
Yeah.
in that moment, or what are you feeling? What were you feeling in that? Just a different, because we're all so much in our heads anyway
Yeah.
about this issue. Not all of us, but white people. Um, uh,
Yeah.
so that's one thing, and then another thing is that last thing that you just did with Lily. I just want to, like, when you noticed that eyes all over the place,
Mhm.
and then you said again something like, what do you think about that? I forget exactly, it'll be on the recording.
Let's analyze that a little
Let's
more.
analyze
Yeah.
that. Thank
Yeah.
you, Nancy. As opposed
Right.
to, another way of doing that would be to say, oh yeah, your eyes are going all over there right now. Notice what that's like for you
Mm.
inside as you do that.
Yeah, what is
Um,
that? Interrupting it as it's happening and like pointing it out.
or I guess even
Yeah.
if no, even I guess um, so you pointed it out, but she wasn't doing it in that moment. So I noticed your eyes going all over like that. Could you just try that out for a moment and notice what that's like, or something like that, and then
Mhm.
that gives her like a lived experience of that.
Mhm.
Lily anyway was able to get to something really good about, well, she was just talking to the air anyway and hearing herself talk, but it's just a different way to get kind of more a lived experience inside. And there
Yeah.
was a moment there. What was the question that you asked, Kathy?
It was too much of a leading question. I was like, whose responsibility is it to have these kind of like to um like when scenarios like this happen, like whose responsibility is it? But that was like really it was a leading question that only had one answer. So I knew it as I asked it that it wasn't a good one. Um,
So
but I
so
couldn't come
if
up with a better one in
so
the
so
moment.
if you really have something like that, then you could frame. It sounds like you're saying that that's not your responsibility. That's white people's responsibility. Is that what you're
Mm,
saying? You could just
right.
say that, right?
Yeah.
And then
And
there
I
was something else that Kathy said that I felt was so important, um, which was, uh, she said, uh, I wouldn't even engage with that person.
Yeah, that was very powerful.
That was a very powerful thing. And then, wow. So maybe not even to Kathy, but maybe to everybody. Wow, that's really good information. Is that's going to cut off, or are you saying, Kathy, that you're going to cut off relationship with somebody like that? That's really important for us to
Maybe
know
not
if we
if
want to
she was
have.
my aunt, but definitely would be limited. I mean, it would be more limited than if I had a relationship, and I think that's true. I think that's
So
true.
so that's an important thing to frame. Then try to get, where's the hottest part of that. Like you could go to, you know yes, that's right, I hear you saying that. Is that true about, that's white people's job, not yours? And then can we go back to that thing that was, say more about what you mean by that you wouldn't have a conversation like, you wouldn't want a conversation, or that it would be limited. Like, let's talk about together, like the impact on our relationships with
Yeah.
cross-racially. That's a big deal.
So right now we're all participants debriefing, but do you have advice about how to structure the debrief when it will be some people will just have observed and some will have participated? Do you start by hearing from one group and then the other? And who would you go, does it matter who goes first?
I mean, you might want to, I mean, it depends. If you're noticing somebody, right, who's like not a participant, but kind of fidgeting the whole time or looking uncomfortable or something, it's like you could say, would you mind saying something? Lily, I'm kind of curious what was going on with you. It looked like there was a lot going on with you there. So
Yeah.
that would be a way to do it, or you could go to the participants or the people in the role play, or make sure to get also to the watchers, maybe not to everybody, but because we're gonna do it in different iterations of it.
Yeah. And then I wrote this in the doc. I think we talked about this at our last meeting, like saying to the observers, what would you have done differently can be hard because it's already so uncomfortable that like I don't know if I want to lead people to saying what they would have done, because in these situations it's so much easier to say what you would have done than in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how people felt about that.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think like what could they have done differently doesn't need to be in there.
I think there's already so much richness just in the back and forth like this.
Yeah, then it kind of invites judgment and
Yeah.
criticism. And I'd like to keep it safe space for people because
Yeah.
I like what you said earlier, Heather. This is courageous work, and we're encouraging that, making it a safe space to be courageous,
And I really
relatively safe.
think that I mean this is very invaluable. And what Lane and I knew this about him as a master teacher of process work, but what he is really focused on is getting people focused into their body. And because when you focus into your body, you don't focus on your thoughts. And so and so then they start to express differently. I watched all of you express differently. And so there's a richness in that just on its own, even with the watchers, you'll see them, they're all doing something and draw that out so that everybody contributes, not something that can be really sharply criticized, but just what's going on inside.
And maybe this has been discussed. There's time to do 2 of these so that the watchers also can participate as the doers.
The goal is to do 2 scenarios at least,
Okay.
like 2 total. And now that we've been doing the debriefs, I feel like more than 2 is probably not going to happen.
Okay.
So that does mean that potentially, like, not everyone is going to get to be in a role.
But if they're about this big, say maybe 2 more people,
Mm-hmm.
there's enough roles. I think everybody would do one.
Yeah.
But I think even if you're not actively doing it, even being one of the watchers and having an opportunity to debrief, I think you get just as much out of it. I think you get a lot, maybe even more than being in it, because you can look at how you are as a person. Okay, how would I manage that, or how would I do it, just by hearing what other people say. Like, I wasn't aware that I was really staring at her, but I do that. So it made me think I get very intense. I don't say a lot to a lot of people about that, but I think that when I am sort of incredulous, I cannot believe it, and I do stare at people. So I thought that was funny.
So this is so awesome. I'm really sad that I'm not going to be around for the afternoon, because I wish I could be involved in this. This is really awesome. Great idea, Diane. And so my suggestion would be that each of you go back to that doc and that sitting in the fire race retreat outline and look at those 4 examples and pick your 2 favorite ones so that you could just hit the ground running. You're not like wondering which one I'm going to do. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lane. It's so great to have
Thank
you.
you.
Awesome.
And we're all going to have this recording.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
so if you have a chance to look at it again, feel it, see how it feels. How's it?
You know, Diane, you said something really important at the beginning. I know we're closing now, about why do we want people to be able to express their feelings or get in touch with their bodies. So I think we all probably have our own idea of what the purpose is of these groups or even of the whole workshop. But I really always feel better when that's anchored as to what is, what is our purpose, our overarching purpose. So
Can
I
I
thought
just
that
say, sorry.
was important what you said. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Lily.
Sorry, just the outline is great, but it just needs some cleaning up. So if you made comments, like I was thinking we should get it to facilitators, I don't know, by Tuesday or Wednesday, like a final outline.
So you're gonna clean it up?
Well, I would just want to say if people have made comments, I think Lane and Diane have made comments. If you want to give it a once over, and then I can work on cleaning it up and adding some stuff from today.
Great.
And then I can send a draft final tomorrow, and then Heather and I can send the final outline Wednesday, I feel like, so other people can see it that weren't part of this practice.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
I just took out all of my comments on there. All of mine are good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for your hard work on this.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you. So tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody. Really looking forward to seeing
We're going to
everybody.
see you tomorrow. What time is it? 4 o'clock? Yeah, 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
awesome.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
yeah, so just to clarify, tomorrow's just like we're going over like details, finalizing
I
the
gotta go. Bye, friends.
Bye.
finalizing the plan.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
The one thing that I did want to, like, we don't have time to do today, but I would love to offer or try to create space for would be a practice dialogue. Because we didn't have a chance to do that piece. We did the role plays, but the dialogue is another full hour earlier in the day.
Yeah.
And so like, you've all, I'm assuming, like participated in various race dialogues. So we're not like coming in blind, but it's been a while for me so I'm always down to practice.
Yeah. Anybody have time?
Yeah, I'll practice.
Cool. Yeah, let's
Maybe pick a time, because I can show Farrell this, but if there's another time and you can get him in it.
yeah.
Listen knows it doesn't go right into my calendar for some reason. I just didn't even have it in there.
Sorry.
I get Zoom, which is fine. For some reason, I thought it would go right in my calendar. So I'll make sure to do that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So do we want to try to build in, since we already have our time, like our set time for meeting tomorrow at 4? Do we want to just say, hey, from 4 to 4:30, we'll go over the agenda, finalize everything, make sure everyone's good, and then from 4:30 to 5, we're going to facilitate a practice dialogue.
Yeah.
Like,
That sounds good. That'd be easier than trying to find another time.
Yeah, right. We already have it planned out. So
Yeah.
okay, cool. I'll follow up with
Okay,
an email.
and so what we're going to try to do is come up any things that you need to know. When you come to the meeting tomorrow, well, try to be on time, and we're going to move right through it so that
Yeah.
like we have a full half an hour to practice the dialogue at 4:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I unfortunately have a work meeting every Tuesdays at 4 p.m., so I don't think I'll be able to make it. But I will definitely read the notes and let you know if I have any comments. And if you want to do like further, practice sessions, let me know. I'd be up.
Okay, and we'll record tomorrow's too.
Does your meeting go until 5?
Yeah.
Could we do like a 4:30 to 5:30 or something? So tomorrow, would that screw people up too much?
4:30 to 5:30 or 5 to 6 is better for me.
Okay.
People can do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have mom later.
So Heather, can you contact Lane and let him know?
Yeah, I'll just send an email to everyone.
Yeah. Okay,
from today.
that sounds better. So later is better. And Jordana's doing something really came up, emergency. So, and then Farrell has a work thing. So we'll try to get everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, it's the afternoon here, well, like it is for Lane, and I see clients all afternoon, but whatever time we come up with, I'll try to juggle if I can, so I can be part of it.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes,
Thanks, Diane.
yes. Good, Nina. Glad you can come tomorrow, the other half.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Thanks, Lily.
Thanks, everybody. Lily.
Thanks, Kathy. It was nice to see you on Zoom.
I'll call you, Mom.
Okay, bye.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
guys.